Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. This is going to be my first face-to-face because today I wanted to jump on and talk about what you need to gather and what you need to prepare for budgeting. So I figured it was better to do this face-to-face as opposed to you guys just looking at a white desk. So I'm just going to get started here. So I wanted to talk about what you need to get together before you actually start the process of budgeting. So it's not just as simple as starting to write down numbers in your head. You do have to do some legwork and analyze your bank statements and past spending to see what you are actually spending as opposed to what you think you're spending in your head. So I've written down a list of the steps that I follow every time that I start a new budget or get out of budgeting, because once you get out of it, then you kind of lose track of what you're doing and you need to get back into it. So step number one is to gather all of the necessities. So this is going to be your bank and your credit card statements, any debts or loan statements, mortgage statements, cash receipts if available, and any kind of tax requirements or amounts that you need to pay per month, things like that. And you want a minimum of 3 months, but preferably about 12 months of this, because you need to see at least a few months to start to see trending patterns. Just because you might spend this much 1 month doesn't mean that if you average it out over 3 or 12 months that that's what you're actually spending on average per month. So at this point, you're not taking any income into account. We're focusing solely on expenses. So that's step one. Step two is to analyze. So I do this you can do it on a written spreadsheet, or you can create one online on Excel, any kind of Google Sheets, anything like that you have available to you. And sorry, losing my train of thought there. So you're going to start and you're going to prepare this spreadsheet with all of your expenses and what you are spending. So underneath step two, I then have 6 subcategories that I'm going to call 2-1, 2-2, etc. So to start with, I use this spreadsheet, and I'm going to kind of focus in here. Maybe come out a little bit. You can see that this spreadsheet is basically a list of expenses, fixed expenses, and then variable expenses. Try and get my finger out of the way and hold it. This is what I use. So basically I just go down the list and I start with my bank statements, and number one is your monthly fixed expenses. So those are going to be your mortgage, gas, electricity, water, sewer, cable, internet, telephone, cell phone, Netflix, Disney Plus, any other subscriptions, your house insurance, car payments, car insurance, health insurance, childcare, life insurance. Those are all fixed expenses, and they're fairly easy because they most likely only happen once or twice per month. So you should be able to scan a bank statement or a credit card statement and be able to see when those come out and how much they are. And so those are fairly easy. Then your step 2-2 is your monthly variable expenses. So these are more things like your gas, your groceries, taxis, Ubers, personal care, restaurants, clothes, basically everything else in your life. So those ones are still easy, but they take a little bit more work to analyze. So what I do is I start with month number 1 and I make a spreadsheet or another list, I guess you could call it, and I just use paper. And I start with, let's say, eating out, and I start with the first of the month, and I go down and I find every item that would be in the eating out category, and I write them all down, and then I total it for that month, and then I go on to the next month, and I do the same thing, and I'm crossing these all off my statements as I'm going. I print them out, and to just give you an idea, I won't actually show them to you, but these are just the statements that I just used for my current analysis of my Restart Budgeting With Me series that I've just done. So then I do the same thing for month 2, eating out, go down the list, start with the first of the month, go down, find everything that would go into that category, write it all down, total that. Then I do month 3, same thing. Then I have 3 months of totals of eating out. I add them all together, and then I average them by 3. So that gives me what I'm going to start with today that can be adjusted later, but it gives me a starting total for what I'm going to put down for now as what I'm spending on eating out. Then I go down to the next category, which might be groceries. It might be clothes. So it all depends on your life, on what you're going to have in there. One thing that I am recently trying to cut out, I have a bad habit when I stop at the gas station of going inside and getting a pop and sometimes a candy bar. And that $7 or $8 adds up every time. So it's just little things like that that I notice when I total them all up of how much they're actually adding up to be. So like I said, it is a little bit more work. It is pretty easy, but you're basically just going down your statement from the top to the bottom and crossing every single item off and putting it into a category. And I do that with my bank statement, then my credit card statement. I'm not a big cash person. I rarely carry cash or use it. So most of my expenses can be tracked online. So that is very helpful for me. So then I take into account, so that's your monthly fixed, your monthly variable, then you've got everything else. So there are some things in life that do not happen once every 2 or 3 months. There are some things that happen every year or sporadically throughout the year, and that is what I have talked about in my recent sinking funds video, and that I consider sinking funds. So those would be things like my property taxes, my hydro comes out every 2 months, things like haircuts, makeup, clothes. Those are all things that don't necessarily happen every single month, but they still do happen throughout the course of the year, and I need to allow for them. So I consider those everything else, and I make a list of all of the different things that I think that I will spend money on throughout the course of the year. And if I can, I do have 12 months worth of statements to go back on, so it's easy for me to look back on what my property taxes were this year and be able to allow for them. And for those, I would allow for them monthly. So if, for instance, my property taxes are $1,000 a year, I would just divide that by 12 and then allow a monthly amount, whether you're allowing it in your variable expenses or whether you're creating a sinking funds like I do. So then I total everything. So this is where I start to make my monthly totals, and I look at what I'm spending versus what I'm making. And this is where sometimes you have to go through and make some adjustments, or when I start to notice how much I'm spending on eating out or restaurants or clothes or maybe a new hobby. It's once I total them all up and see how much they are that you can then decide if you're going to cut or eliminate those items from your budget, or maybe you're going to add more. It all depends on your particular life. So that's step 4 is totaling everything. Step 5 is comparing it against how much you make, whether you're overspending or not. Step 6, cutting, eliminating at that stage if needed. So now you've covered step 2 of analyzing, and now you can go into step 3 of drafting a budget. So I have created my own draft budget spreadsheet, and it just has fixed expenses, variable expenses, and my income. And then I also use a sinking fund spreadsheet as well for the items that I want to allow for throughout the course of the year that are not monthly expenses. And at that point, I can draft what I think I'm going to spend. And basically look at it at that point and decide if I'm happy with it or if I want to further cut and eliminate any expenses. So then that's basically it. I mean, at that point, I kind of assign things based on priorities. It depends, what I'm looking at as being left over at the end of the month. If I'm trying to save up for a vacation or a new piece of furniture or something like that, then I might look at it and go, I want to further cut eating out because I want to save for that. So I know I'm using eating out a lot, but it's easy. And it's one I personally find easy to overspend on if I'm not being conscious of that. And now you're ready to actually work your budget and start. Without these numbers in mind, you're not going to be budgeting accurately. You could start, but after your first month, you're going to find out that you're going to see that you're overspending, possibly. So this is just an easy way. This is how I like to go forward with trying to get an accurate number of what I am looking at. So that is about all for this video. I hope that you guys liked it. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.